Welcome in, everyone. You're listening to Bulls Central. I'm joined today with a special guest, a Bulls historian. He's been covering the Bulls since before the Michael Jordan era, before he was ever drafted. He's a Hall of Famer, a best-selling author, and currently covering the Bulls for Bulls.com. And he's actually just now leaving the practice facility, which is why we have him just on the phone here. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Sam Smith of Bulls.com. Sam, it's great to have you back on and appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, sure. Good to talk to you again. Another season. Here we go.
Yes, absolutely. So anything groundbreaking that you can share with us based on what you saw from practice today?
Well, I think Lavine is going to retire. No, no. It's pretty routine in the sense of, everybody before they play any games, has a chance to win the title. And so, except this year, the title basically for 5 or 6 teams is Victor Wembanyama.
Right.
So, there'll be half a dozen teams. I'll be celebrating, more than the champion at the day of the lottery. So, but for a team like the Bulls, it's sort of like, all right, we had our time together, we got to know each other. We suffered, we had injuries, we suffered our bumps and bruises. But now we know each other better, we're going to work off each other well, and so, you say, okay, all right, that's fine. Well, show us. And so,
right.
Obviously, which is, was no secret coming in, and, they formalized, well, yeah, Lonzo Ball's not going to be there. So as much as Dosunmu, is going to try and will do as well as he can, he's not a replacement. He's not as good,
Right.
Lonzo was the number 2 pick in the draft, and $20 million free agent, and, a player the team sort of look toward, for that cliche next step. And, so it's really not fair to look at Ayo and say, second round pick, okay, we're fine. We're where we were before Lonzo got hurt.
Yeah.
So, it's got to be an adjustment with that. But I think it'll be interesting, because of the moving parts. I'm hopeful. It sounds like Javonte Green will start a power forward.
Okay.
And starting is really symbolic. Doesn't really mean anything. Frankly, if they, teams are afraid, do things that would, quote, insult veterans. Frankly, but if I were the Bulls, I would take a look at starting Drummond, because I think defensively he fits better with the Lavine and DeRozan, who are not good defenders.
You're saying start Drummond at the 4 or have him start over Vucevic?
5 over Vucevic.
Wow, okay.
They're not going to do that, obviously. I said I would take a look at it to see, because, I think you need a blend of offensive and defensive players on both units. And actually, I like one thing that it looks like Donovan's going to do is play a whole bench unit. Sort of like, you remember the bench mob of 2011.
Of course, yeah.
As great as Derrick Rose was, that depth on the bench was really a huge reason for why they won 60 games or 62 games, whatever it was. And we're in position, to play Miami, head up. And so I think they're going to do that. And they made some nice additions, Drummond, Dragic, so I think they have a little bit more. Dalen Terry, I think, can help a little bit, with defense, energy, aggressiveness, if they give him a chance to play a little bit. So I'm saying, if it were me, I would take a look at that to say, hey, maybe this guy fits better, but they're not going to do that. And they never do that. But I was making the point of starting.
Yeah.
It's kind of an ego thing in a lot of ways. But, it doesn't matter who starts. Frankly, the Bulls in the last couple of years haven't played that well in the first quarters. I mean, I would look at it and say, maybe let's switch up some, but, Vucevic is going into his contract year. The media, and I would be partially guilty of that, will all say, "Oh, he's demoted." Like what's going on with the Lakers with Westbrook. It's not. To me, it's not a big deal who starts. And actually, Alex Caruso always has a good attitude about it. He says it only matters who finishes.
Yeah.
And the truth is, Caruso would be the best of the three who are the supposed candidates, to start. But I think appropriately so. The team looks at it like, this guy, plays with his hair on fire. If we start him and play him big minutes, he's going to be injured by Thanksgiving. And so I think they moderate his playing time, and I think it's probably the right thing to do. But I was just saying, on the notion of starting, we make more of it than it is. Like last season, DeRozan was out 5 minutes into every game because they wanted to, play him and give an offensive boost with the reserves.
Yeah.
So halfway, midway through the first quarter, DeRozan wasn't even on the floor.
Yeah.
Not that he was being, did anything wrong negatively. It's just the way you adjust the minutes. But, that said, it sounds like they're going to go with Green, which I like the idea because I think Patrick Williams will play much better, without playing with Lavine and DeRozan, because we want these players, these people to be who we need them to be, teams, and fans to an extent. And that's just not who he is. He's a deferential person.
Yeah.
And so he's going to give the ball to Lavine or DeRozan, because they're aggressive, type A personalities. If you put him with these other guys, he'll be much more aggressive. And so I think, it seems to be that the Donovan's leaning that way. So I think it'll work out better.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask about that. So it's good that, you already mentioned it, that starting power forward spot. I think a lot of people assumed that it was going to be Patrick Williams. And then as we kind of got towards the preseason, Billy Donovan made it a little more clear that that's not set in stone. And especially with the way that Javonte Green was playing the preseason, playing incredibly well, what was going to be the starting unit, right? Because, you guys are in practices, you're probably seeing who's sort of practicing in the first unit, who's in the second unit. I agree with you. I actually think that probably is a good move, both for Patrick's development. I hope it doesn't impact his confidence at all. I think that's sort of the biggest question mark I have. I did want to actually start with Lonzo Ball because you were talking about Lonzo, which I feel, now whenever I have guests on, I always start with Lonzo Ball, but it's really because he's the biggest talk of the offseason around the uncertainty surrounding him. In his media availability on that first day of training camp via Zoom, you had actually asked him some pretty direct questions, which I think as Bulls fans, we actually appreciate because, there's always been this somewhat of a lack of transparency as far as Lonzo's status and what it was throughout the offseason, right. As far as what the front office was revealing, one of your questions in particular to him was, hey, do you think there's a chance you might miss the whole season? I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that was sort of the gist of it. And so, I guess my question is, based on what we know of Lonzo and his status right now, which is still pretty up in the air despite the surgery going well, what do you think is a realistic time frame for him to return to action? And do you think that, maybe he was downplaying that he could potentially miss the whole season, especially when he said he's not going to rush his rehab?
Yes. Now I got to qualify this and, give it like the coach always does and everyone else. I'm not a doctor. So that's the one. The other two is I don't have any inside information on this at all.
Sure.
But I would be surprised if he plays this season.
Wow. Okay.
For several reasons. To me, it's obvious, almost obvious that he won't play. Part of it is, it's a second knee surgery within a year. The other thing is, it's been pretty common in the NBA lately for these guys who have these kinds of injuries and situations to sit out a season. Joe Harris with the Nets. He's not even, he'll be out a year and when he comes back. What's his name? The Chicago kid who was with the Lakers who sat out all last season. Just now coming back again.
Was it Taylor Horton-Tucker?
No, the other guy.
Oh, Anthony Davis.
Guard. No, the shooting guard. He was a shooter. Anyway, I forget names, but your listeners will know who it is. They can write it down later. You can fill it in later.
All right.
But yeah, and it goes back a lot. Actually, I think it goes back a lot to the Derrick Rose thing and the way he was treated in Chicago by the media. Where there was this, these accusations or whispers that he didn't want to play. He was dogging it. He was sitting out, and guys, especially with somebody like Lonzo's, 25 years old. This is not the end of his career. These guys now, because of the amount of money in these contracts, the longevity you could stay in the NBA, they're not rushing back to play, and not because they don't want to play. It's just that you don't want to risk, and it's become pretty universal in sports, really. You don't want to risk your career, over a short period of time, and that's really what was going on with Rose at the time. There was this thing about you're cleared to play. You're cleared to play doesn't mean you get on the court to play. It means you're cleared to start working up to playing. But but don't be risking your career over this. So and actually Alonzo's dad did a interview or something just over this weekend.
I saw that.
Where the one thing that stuck out to me is that where he said, don't let these people, give you this 4 or 6 week thing and coming back. To me, that was, whoa, the red flag. Like, they're doing this on their timetable, so, and the Bulls, the medical thing was at the time, we'll reevaluate him in 4 to 6 weeks. And Billy Donovan was quick to say, look, this guy's been out to January, even if we starting evaluating him and he's close to, as where he could, work out and get on the court. He's out a year. He's not anywhere ready to play.
Right.
So now you're getting into next year, not next season, but the next calendar year, January, February. And now, now it starts, All-Star game, post-All-Star game, where things start ramping up. Mm-hmm. So you're going to push a guy into the part of the season where everybody's had an opportunity to work up to that point. And you're going to put him in when the games start, ramping up, the post-All-Star break, run to the playoff positioning into the playoffs. So all those factors, and the fact that he's got 2 years left on his deal with the Bulls. See, I don't think they want to rush him either. I think they're more concerned. I haven't heard this from them, but if it were me, I'd be more concerned about these next 2 years. Look, no matter what the Bulls do or say, they're not a championship contender this year. Unless everybody breaks down on the top 5 teams or something. Unless they're like at the All-Star game, Embiid, Giannis, they all blow out their knees in the All-Star game. The Bulls are not playing for a title this year. So what's the point of rushing this guy back? Get him up to the point where he's ready to go, full steam. He's not hesitant. And, you've got some depth now. You've got players. Not to say, like I said, Ayo is not on the level of Lonzo Ball, but, you've got guys in position. You got some offense and defense. You got some versatility. I think both sides are going to be really cautious. And if both sides are really cautious, I would be surprised if he plays this year.
Well, what I'll counter to that, though, because I agree to an extent as far as rushing his rehab back, you're saying, the Bulls are not a contender. Why try to rush him back if, he's potentially not, even if he is clear and he's ready to go, why rush him back when the Bulls likely are not going to be winning a title, which I 100% agree with. The opposite side of the token is the Bulls don't have their draft pick this upcoming year. If Lonzo sits out the whole year, do you think that likely means they miss the playoffs, which we'll actually talk about because this is obviously a stacked Eastern Conference that we have this year. If the Bulls miss the playoffs, they've got a lottery pick going to Orlando. In my view, bringing Lonzo back, obviously you don't want to rush it, but that's important so that you can ensure that you're not giving Orlando this great lottery pick and you're actually going to be able to make the playoffs. What do you think about that?
Well, I understand that thinking. I don't see why Lonzo Ball should care one whit about that. Why should Lonzo Ball care if the Bulls made a deal that's not going to look good, to the media? So I mean, to me, that, it's sort of an irrelevant point. And if the Bulls' view of that is we got to rush him, we got to get him on the court so we don't look bad about the trade, of Vucevic, then they're not thinking of his best interest.
Sure.
And I don't think they're looking at it that way. I think they owe him they owe him a lot of money for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And if it works
three,
out,
actually.
The 4-year deal is his second year.
Yeah.
So, 2 more years after this.
Yeah.
So, and if it works out, I'm sure they would want to, extend him and re-sign him. But if they did something medically irresponsible, you got a big chance, especially with the Ball family, of alienating the guy. So
Yeah.
I think, if it's me, like I said, I don't know what the Bulls are actually going to do, but if it's me, I'm taking my time with this kid, and I'm making it clear to him and his family that his health and his future is the biggest priority for me. And I frankly, I don't give a crap about if I'm, I want to make the playoffs. I think they will make the playoffs, but the East is better. It's possible you won't, but I'm not worried about if the media or the fans are going to say, okay, now we think you made a mistake about the deal because Orlando has a lottery pick. Look, stuff happens like it. You got to do what's best for you at the time. And as long as you feel good, and that's the way I look at anything in life, as long as you feel good that you did the right thing at that time, you can't worry about the factors afterwards of being second guessed. That's basically, for podcasts and things like that.
Right. I had Rob Schaefer on last week, and I asked him this as well, though I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. How do you think the front office handled the situation with Lonzo Ball as far as what they were communicating to the public? Because, we would hear from our tourists, Mark and Billy, whether it was during Summer League or at the draft, that he's progressing, he's making progress. It's a little slower than we would like to see, but he's making progress. When in reality, when Lonzo spoke to you guys, to the media on that day that we were talking about, he's saying he can't even run or jump and that it hurts to walk up the stairs. From a fan's perspective, that's not progress. And a lot of Bulls fans were pretty frustrated as to why the decision, of him going to have surgery right before the start of the season rather than doing it earlier. Do you think the situation in terms of the communication and transparency could have been handled a little bit better? Or again, because, you've been covering the league for a while, is that just par for the course in terms of sort of keeping things under wraps when it's a fluid situation?
Yeah, pretty par for the course. I think, a couple of things there. One is I don't know how much the Bulls even knew, frankly, even though he's under contract to them, because I think it's a unique situation dealing with the Ball family. It's clear, he went to his own, the Bulls had a representative there. They had somebody there, and they were aware, but, they were making their medical decisions with their own doctor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, it's quite possible they weren't, I wouldn't say weren't aware, but they weren't, a prime party to the decision making about we're going to do surgery now, we're going to wait, we're going to do this. I think, it sounded like to me, Ball and his people, family, however that's done, were deciding what they were going to do. And they had gotten a medical opinion and said, basically, well, let's wait it out. I don't think it was a Scottie Pippen situation where he said, I don't want to, I want to have my summer, to have fun, to go to the beach. And then I don't think it was that. I don't think it was dogging in any way. I think, it was clear after the first surgery that they were baffled about what had happened. I mean, I think the Bulls were honest in March and April. They were expecting him back. Yeah. I think they were really surprised that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So then at that point, it becomes like, we don't give a crap what you think, media, fans, no offense. There's a medical issue. And, by law, medical records are private. We don't know about your cancer diagnosis, and you got no reason, you have no responsibility or to tell us, and we have no ability, to ask you for it. So we're not going to tell you about this guy's private medical problems unless he decides to tell you.
Sure.
And frankly, what I was shocked about actually was Lonzo's media session that you're referring to. I couldn't believe that he was that, honest and transparent about it.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, I think if we're the team and they knew he was going to say that, I think they would have told him not to say that.
Yeah. No, I,
But
I
I think
actually felt the same. Yeah.
I think he was being really forthcoming.
Yeah.
And so I think really, and this is a case where the Bulls as a team are at the mercy of the medical issue and the family and, the fact that they still owe this guy 2 more years. And look, teams prioritize players now. I think too much. But that's me. But there's this notion, and it gets propagated by fans and media too, that if players speak ill of you, or we got a lot of this during the previous management thing. Well, players are not going to come to Chicago because of this guy or that guy, which is just nonsense. Players go where the money is. I mean, why does Brunson go to New York? Because it's so fabulous to go to New York. No, they offer him the most money. Frankly, why did DeMar DeRozan come to Chicago? Because he couldn't get anywhere near that money anywhere else.
Yeah.
I know he likes it here. He's had great career success, but it was hardly his priority. So, but nevertheless, teams worry about that, and they worry about, to me, unnecessarily, the reaction to it, like, oh, it's, if you do something, say something about a player, he'll tell other players, and they won't come here. It's all nonsense. Partially because now you see players are just, kind of take the money and run. Bradley Beal stayed in Washington. He's never going to win anything. May never make the playoffs. Damian Lillard in Portland may never make the playoffs. So it's obvious guys are done with this notion of, let's create super teams. What it is now is let's just get wherever I can get the money. And so, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But anyway, teams worry about that. And so I think the Bulls are deferring everything to what Ball, or they feel Ball and his representatives and his family want done. So I think they're almost spectators as much as we are.
Switching gears just a little bit, because I was curious, obviously you were at practice today. I'm kind of uploading my phone here as we speak. We're about a few hours away from the deadline for Coby White to potentially reach an extension. I don't think it's likely at all. And for those watching, we're recording this Monday afternoon. I'm going to try to get it out this evening, if not by tomorrow morning. So we'll obviously already know by then. But I guess a further question to that, what do you see, from Coby? What are you expecting from Coby this season? Do you see him remaining with the team throughout the year? And then obviously, beyond, once he becomes a restricted free agent this upcoming offseason?
He's in a difficult situation as far as the Bulls, especially, we talked about Lonzo, maybe not coming back this year, but, he's going to come back.
Yeah.
And presumably he's going to come back at a high level. And, now you've already, as a result, with him now, are developing some depth at that position. Io, Jalen, Dalen Terry, maybe, sort of a swing guy. Caruso, and the Bulls, they need shooting, and they need, that's really probably one of their weakest spots, sort of a spot up perimeter shooter, Tyler Hero type, Max Strus, guys Miami has, somebody like that. And they don't really have anyone like that. Coby's the closest, so there's some usefulness there. No, I don't expect them, to get a rookie extension. Hasn't earned it really, and a lot of factors play against it. He was injured a lot last season.
Mm-hmm.
He was moved around a lot. You were point guard, the shooting guard is obviously not a point guard. That's been made pretty clear now. Put him in his role. So it seems to me like, there's a need for what he does. Really, because of the injury last year, he didn't have a chance to get stronger. Presumably in the off season, he's worked a little bit, he's strengthened himself, gotten better shape, better condition, and could have a good start. And then look, as we discussed, since they're not considered a title contender now, you've got to assume that they're going to try to improve, and try to improve basically during the season means trades. So if he can have a good start to the season, he becomes somebody that maybe they can combine with someone else, make a deal. There's a lot of talk. Do you need a power forward? Depending on Patrick Williams does. Patrick Williams may be better, because he has some skills as a small forward. He can shoot the ball. He can defend. I think he can defend some threes well enough. Maybe they want to get a little bigger. And so I think he becomes somebody that let's see if there's interest in him. Let's see what he brings to us, and then let's see how it goes. And the Bulls have a history, frankly, with Jimmy Butler, Zach Lavine, and letting guys set their market. And I think that's the stage with him. He has a good season and plays. I think they'll say, okay, let's see what's your market, and depending on what that is and your value to us, we'll see if we want to match it or not.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of where he is, and that's where if I were the Bulls, that's what I would do too. Show me what you got. Show me whether you're deserving to be a number 7 pick. And if you produce at that level, let's talk next summer.
Yeah. I also wanted to talk about Billy Donovan a bit, because I think, most will agree the Eastern Conference got even better this season, probably the most competitive it's going to be in decades. So this season is not going to get any easier for the Bulls' playoff positioning. You could argue, like we were talking about, there's a chance that without Lonzo Ball, especially if he misses the whole season, they could miss the playoffs entirely with how stacked the East is. I don't agree with that assessment. I think the Bulls are still going to make the playoffs even without Lonzo Ball. It might be on the lower end, but a lot of media outlets feel this way, right? In the event the Bulls do in fact miss the playoffs, whether they failed to make it out of the play-in or they just missed the play-in entirely, does that likely spell the end for Billy Donovan as the Bulls head coach? Or do you think the front office will continue to, double down on keeping Billy because they place so much emphasis on going after him when he became available after leaving OKC?
On the first part, I agree. I think look, if you finish 7th or 8th, you can miss the playoffs. And so, you got to get in the top 6 to be assured. And so, there's a possibility that could happen. Cleveland had this great run last year. They were up there, top 4 for quite a while, first half, ended up, not getting in. So, Cleveland with Donovan, Atlanta, with the guard from the Spurs. And so, it's a deeper and tougher conference, except for the real bottom. So it's possible. Actually, I expect the opposite. I think that Donovan and the management team will get extensions this year.
Okay.
The Bulls don't have it. And I mean, they've changed coaches with some frequency over the years. But but they haven't changed managements, with frequency. I think they like the management they hired. It was a difficult process for them to go through that, not only to move on from the prior group. You remember, basically had 2 management units in almost 40 years between Krause and Paxson. So I think the process, I think they like these guys. So I think they're going to get an extension, and I also think they like Billy too, personally and professionally. And from everything I can gather, Arturis and his group is still high on Billy. So actually, I think he'll get an extension this year.
Okay.
No matter where they finish, even if they miss the playoffs.
What if they finish dead last? I'm 15? Kidding. They're not going to finish dead last.
That'd be great, because then they got a shot at Wembanyama. So that'd be the best they could do. But
they don't. Well, I guess the lottery pick that they're sending the Magic is top 4 protected. So you're right. If they did, you're right. You're right. I did want to talk about the Bulls' newest addition, the first round draft pick, and Dalen Terry. Fiery guy, brings a lot of energy and passion, hustles, looked good in the preseason, versatile player who can guard multiple positions. The problem is with all the vets that the Bulls have on the roster and a team that is really looking to win now, more or less, right? It begs the question whether he'll even crack the rotation. Do you see Dalen getting rotational minutes this season?
Not unless there's injuries, but I didn't see Ayo getting any rotation minutes last year this time, frankly. I mean, I would thought sure after, and especially after seeing him in summer league, I thought sure this guy, and really actually it probably would have done him. He helped the team by playing, but I think it hurt him by playing with the not being in the G League, because I think what you saw with Jordan Poole, played almost 2 seasons in G League and made this huge jump.
Yeah,
I think it really helps you. A lot of people look at the G League as a demotion. I think it's real positive. I think you get out there and you play, you have a chance to work on your game, which, Ayo last season, they needed him, he had to play, but basically he was just dribbling the ball up and handing it to DeMar so he could get a shot. He really wasn't running the team. So, but they needed him because all the injuries, and the Caruso went out and, Lonzo and everything. So, there really was no choice. But so again, similarly with Terry, if there's injuries, but no, what we forget, and I understand the notion of, well, they're in the NBA now, they're getting paid, they got to play like pros. They're kids. He's what is he, 19, 20 years old?
Yeah.
He shouldn't be in the NBA. And Michael Jordan came in the NBA when he was 21 after 3 years in college. He's not ready to play in the NBA. He's not good enough. But if they have injuries or something, he'll play some. You could throw him out there for a few minutes because of his hustle and his mentality and the way he plays and thinks. He'll have some productive moments. But if you have your full team, he won't be in the rotation. And I hope he's in the G League playing full games. He really needs to learn to shoot. Can't shoot. And that's a pretty big thing in the NBA now. I mean, it was always a big thing, not as big as it is now. And so, for all the hustle kind of game, you can see like Javonte Green, what's making a difference for him is now he can make that corner 3.
Yeah, he's developing his shot for sure.
Well.
Yeah.
Right. And so Terry needs some work on his game. So I hope he's not in the rotation, actually, because then that would mean somebody more valuable is hurt.
Now, Sam, I'll get you out of here on this one. Realistically speaking, what do you expect from the Bulls this season in terms of, where they're going to sit in the standings, underperform, overperform, postseason play, all of it?
Yeah, I actually think they could be kind of where they were last year. I still think they could, be a little better, a little more under the radar than, some of the projections. You were talking to projections. I saw one with that 538 the other day, and they picked them for 35 wins. And so it's, it's all over, but it's still, most of, like you said, 35 to 44, it's kind of, actually most of the range I've seen is like 41 to 44. I think they'll be a little better than that. I'm basing that on, I think teams are overlooking people are overlooking what the depth can give them. And the possibilities with that. So I think if Billy, if the coach runs out 2 units, I think he's really got to cut down the minutes, especially on DeRozan and Vucevic. I think they played way too much last year. Now, understand they had to play again with the injuries.
Right.
But DeRozan was played the 3rd most minutes in the league. I mean, to his credit, in an era when guys don't want to play, great to his credit with them, but still, if other guys are resting for the playoffs and you're extending yourself like that at now 33, I don't think that's a great idea. So, I like the idea maybe, if they go to more 2 units, play the starters a little less, play somebody. And that's where Terry could get some minutes, he's with the team, playing in an aggressive kind of second unit. You put a bunch of defensive guys out there with Caruso, Drummond, Patrick Williams, and then you can pressure teams a little bit, pick up higher, do some of the things you couldn't do, because you were playing DeRozan, Vucevic so many minutes, Zach, he would have played the minutes, because he always does, but, couldn't because of his knee. So, Yeah, I got them again for around that. I think they'll be a little better than projections. 45, 46, 47. I think they can get into sixth, which would be, a guaranteed playoff spot. And then I think, now I probably wouldn't have said what Arturis did, is that, we expect to be a second round playoff team. There's a lot of factors in that, and then people, hold it against you. I don't think he worries that much about what people say. But that'd be a great jump. Then you got to beat one of the top four teams in the East, and that's going to be tough. But I do think, at least in the regular season, I would expect them to be competitive and kind of where they were last year. Not not in first place the first 3 months, but having a better finish and doing a little better against the better teams.
Do you think second round appearance is attainable? Based on what you're saying, as far as
you're looking at baseball. The Dodgers won 111 games or something, and the Mets won 100. So when you get in the playoffs in a short series, stuff happens. Middleton got hurt. That could have been a huge, crucial injury for the Bucks if the Bulls didn't lay down in the rest of the series. But I think part of that was injuries, and part of that they were worn out from as much as some of them played during the regular season.
Right.
So yeah, stuff can happen, when you get in the playoffs, and it's a possibility, but they're not better, in talent than those top four teams now. Yeah. We'll see what it looks like, come April.
Well, Sam, I do always appreciate you making the time, especially after a busy day. I know the season's about to start. You're going to be on the road here pretty soon, so safe travels to be going to watching the team. Make sure you're checking out Sam's work at bulls.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at Sam Smith Hoops. And Sam, it's great to chat. Hopefully we'll be able to get to do it again sometime in the season.
All right. Good to talk to you. Thanks.